Hi, everyone. Kumar Datatran here with Meridian Point, and I'm pleased to introduce Tom Stiehm, who is a guest today. He's spent 3 decades building software and leading teams before becoming one of the country's foremost voices on DevSecOps, the practice of baking security directly into the software delivery pipeline. As the CTO of Coveros, he trained engineers and executives at major financial institutions and government agencies, helped organizations move from releasing software every 2 years to releasing every sprint. He also co-authored research on using AI to automate behavior-driven development. Now in a new chapter of his career at Steampunk, he's watching the AI wave hit the software world. And he has some very specific opinions about what's about to go wrong. So please welcome Tom to the stage. I thank you for joining us, Tom, today. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me. So Tom, you and I both spent some time at Fannie Mae. Mm-hmm. You have a story about a hurricane in Houston that I think perfectly captures what real business agility looks like. Tell us what happened, because it's a story that most people in transformation work have never really seen come to life the way it did there.
Yeah, so Fannie Mae had been trying to switch to Agile for some time. And we were both there as Agile coaches. When I had started doing work with Fannie Mae, if you were a project releasing every 2 to 3 years, you were doing pretty well. Mm. Down there, one of the teams that I worked with, they had embraced Agile to the point where they had started to release at the end of every sprint. Mm. And then they had this challenge where there was a hurricane in Houston, and there was federal legislation that was released that said if you live in Houston and you were affected by the hurricane, you would get mortgage relief. Mm. Normally, before Fannie Mae had been Agile, what they would have done is there wouldn't have been any time to do anything with the software. It would have been all back office modifications, and there'd be a lot of mistakes and errors, and it would be hard on everyone. The team I worked with said, this is the perfect example to show us what we can do. And so they canceled their sprint, the immediate thing they were working on, went back to planning, focused on what they would need to change to provide software relief to these people. They had about 4 months to do it because they had this business agility ingrained in them, where they could change what they were doing. They were actually able to get the changes done in 3 months and have it tested for another month before it had to go live. And that allowed them to succeed at that. And so they had far fewer problems with back-end modifications, with people not getting covered, and all those things, because they were able to actually quickly adjust what they were doing and provide a solution that, until they went in that day that they started the replanning, they had no idea they had to do.
So what made that possible with that team? So this is a team out of many, many teams at Fannie Mae, and not, in varying degrees of agility. What was the environment like that allowed them to work with agility the way that they did?
Well, I would credit the Scrum Master they had at the time. She was very proactive, had done a lot of work with the team to get to that point where they could release on a regular basis. And then the team itself had done a lot of good work. They had focused on building tests so that they could refactor the code, change the code, know if there were problems by running the tests, and they had gotten into this cadence of releasing. So they really embraced the idea of, let's be agile and let's figure out how to do this. And they had been they were probably the most progressive team I worked with. And they had, a year before this had happened, they had gotten to the point where they were releasing more often every sprint. And so it was really, the team and the people on the team that were able to make this shift and embrace those principles and build that business agility.
Yeah, but it also speaks to the leadership, right, of that team, the people that the system that the team was a part of that empowered them to be able to do this, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, they definitely embraced the idea, and they embraced working with the team to be more agile. Probably as a coach there, I spent more time with the leadership, the
Mm,
manager and director, because the scrum master was a really good scrum master, and she would ask questions and we talk about things, but she really led the team, and then it was helping the management make that mental transition to having the team drive the work they were doing that helped.
yeah.
So that's a great point. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. So I'm curious. I don't know when you were there. I was there for a few years on and off, and they did progress quite a bit over the time that I was there. I could definitely see the changes from the first stint I spent at Fannie Mae to the last stint I spent there.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't uniform, right? It was sort of pockets of agility here and there and
Yes.
everywhere. And towards the end of my last stint, it was more uniform that most teams were doing something agile, but not every team. What would you say was a catalyst for that to happen at Fannie Mae?
I think the teams that succeeded were, as you had pointed out, were the teams that had management that really supported the idea of change and embrace those things. The first Agile project I ever worked on was actually a Fannie Mae project in 2002.
Wow, it's a long time ago.
Yeah, when I was just a member of the team there. We introduced Agile to them. There was one pioneering director there who said, yeah, let's try it and see how it works. The rest of the organization was waterfall. So we actually did a release with all the things we had signed up to do in 6 months. And then their response was, great, we'll put it on this UAT server, and it's not going to get released for another 6 months because we have all these other things to do that fall within our waterfall process.
I think I sat on the shelf for 6 months. Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, compare that with, the last time I was there, where people are actually able to, everyone embraced it so that even operations would support releasing at that cadence where they could release every sprint. Was a big change in the organization.
Yeah.
But it was because the management there embraced that change and wanted it to happen.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, that's a good story of where have the sort of the arc of transformation that Fannie Mae took. I'm not sure where they are today, but hopefully they're still agile, nimble, and responsive to changes. I want to shift to another topic, really around secure application security. And one of the things that you in our preparatory conversation, you called application security the poster child for third-class citizens in software development, behind even QA. What did you mean by that, and how does DevSecOps disrupt that dynamic?
Well, so security in a traditional software development process, and even in a lot of the early Agile processes I was part of, was the thing that you did at a release, in the last week or two before a release, where there's really no time to fix a lot of things. So you end up negotiating, putting security concerns into your production because you don't have time to fix them. You just hope to address the worst ones. The most security aware organizations would halt a release for a short period of time to address the worst things. The least security aware would just release anyway. And so, if it was a bad enough quality bug, you could get attention to that. But bad security bugs, you just couldn't get enough attention to because, the philosophy often was, well, let's just hope that we don't get exploited.
Right.
And, so there's nothing that's a better hallmark for something that's a neglected part of the process than we'll just ignore that we have these concerns and just hope nothing bad happens.
Right. You've said that security comes in late and demands a lot. How do you change a culture that's been rewarded for ignoring security?
Well, you have to change the the incentive system, right? So, and reward's a great word for it, right? So if the organization values and only values delivering new features, no matter the quality or security impact of that, then that's what the organization's going to deliver. You have to change the incentive system so that you reward quality, you reward security, you value those things. Organizations that I've seen that have tried to change but didn't change their incentive system eventually reverted back to the thing that they didn't like before, the way they ran before, because people react to incentive systems. And
for sure.
And those are things that matter.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had this conversation from many different angles with different guests, and I 100% agree. If you want to change the culture, the climate, the way people think about work, the relationship with it, and so on, you have to change the incentives, change the rewards to get there. So yeah, that's a good point. You've said that you think the AI boomers and the AI doomers are both wrong. Can you spend a little time unpack that for us? What are the boomers getting wrong? What are the doomers missing?
Well, I think that what the boomers are getting wrong is that the AI that we have now, although it's got great qualities to it, there are great things you can do with it. There are severe limitations that are going to prevent some of the things they predict will happen, like the end of programming jobs. We've been 6 months away from the end of programming jobs for at least 2 years now.
Yeah.
And that's probably not going to happen, right? If writing code was what creating software was, that might be true. But writing code is a part of the software engineering process, the process of taking an idea and making it into a product people can use.
Yeah.
And so there are efficiencies to gain by using AI assistants. Kind of gets back to the idea of what's essentially hard to do with software and what's accidentally hard to do with software. And that idea is that there, things like gathering requirements and building software that's intuitive and people can use are essentially hard. Our tools to automate that won't make that less hard.
Yeah.
We've created languages and operating systems and programming paradigms that were accidentally hard. I mean, there's a lot of complexity in the software we create that is complex just because that's the way we put it together, or the languages and tools we have were built for past eras of computers and how they worked, and so they don't map into modern systems and modern computers as well. So those are accidentally hard things, and that's the kind of thing that tools can help make better. And so I think that I think something like spec-driven development, where there's still people thinking through how the application should work and how it should serve the users and serve the business, is valuable.
Yeah.
I think vibe coding is not. I think the way that the AI doomers get things wrong is that AI is a tool. We can use our tools the way we see fit, and there's no evidence that the AI is going to, at least now, take over the world and doom us all, right? So we've also been 6 months away from the end of civilization for 2 years.
Yeah.
Both of those things certainly aren't true. I don't think either of them are. Yeah,
that's a good point. I mean, you do see the headlines, people, all the layoffs that are happening in technology companies, the software stocks that are getting clobbered because of AI, presumably because of AI, Claude Code, and other tools like that are going to take over what developers do, right? Or what these software companies have produced. What is your take on that?
So it's hard to know why organizations lay people off, right? So again, if we look at incentives, there's the very straightforward incentive that often in today's stock market, laying people off makes your stock price go up. So that's an incentive for the people who make those decisions. It has nothing to do with AI. If AI was really about making people more efficient and there was always more work to do, you wouldn't lay people off who were being effective for you. You'd find other things for them to do.
Sure. So you're thinking it's an excuse, or it's a reaction to the market? Is that what you're saying?
Some of the studies I've seen said that there has actually been very little reduction in jobs because of AI, and that it is a convenient excuse for the people who those decisions and then talk to the press about it, because it takes away decisions they've made as the reason why they had to do layoffs.
Okay. That makes sense. Sort of using that as a scapegoat, or as a reason to reduce the amount of people that you have in the company. You mentioned vibe coding. Walk us through your thoughts on that. It seems to me that vibe coding could be useful as a sort of a partnership between human and machine, right, or human and AI. To be able to describe the problem and have the AI coded for you, if you will. And maybe I'm being too simplistic in my understanding of vibe coding.
So I think you have to start with, what do you mean by vibe coding, right? Because people mean different things. Some people mean that I sit down, I use a mic and I talk to my computer and tell it what I want, and it just goes and makes it happen.
Yeah.
Which is very unstructured. And just like any other unstructured way of developing software, it's going to have limitations, right? So we've been creating code on Vibes for a long time. About 12 years ago, longer than that ago, I was a Perl programmer. About 12 years ago, someone had asked me to create a system in Perl. And so, I went out and I knew what the program should do. I knew enough Perl to know this is kind of what it is I want to do. So I used Google and Stack Overflow to say, show me curl code that does this. I was able to take that and convert it into the system that we were building. It wasn't a big system. And so, that was what people do with vibe coding now, right?
Yeah,
kind of put things together. And for small systems, for prototypes, it makes sense. Now, some people say that vibe coding is any time that you're using AI or an agentic system to create code. And when you vibe code like that, that includes things like spec-driven development, where you have more details and more formalism and more planning. And so if you're talking about that as vibe coding, then, I think that can help you get to a certain point with your software. There is value in it. And even if you're vibe coding a prototype to show something that, to give people an idea of what you want, realizing that, like with any prototype, if you don't spend time creating the right production kind of code, the right kind of production infrastructure, you're going to have to redo that. That still has value too, right? So we've been creating prototypes that were, quick and dirty, things that, were meant to last for a short period of time to get us an idea of what's possible and get us started.
Yeah.
But we'd also always see that's, there were people that said, okay, that prototype's good enough, just put that into production. And it didn't work, right? Because it couldn't scale. It couldn't live up to the production demands, because we didn't create it for that. We created it as an example. So, but that doesn't mean there's not value in that. It's just where is the value, and how do we go from this idea that we have that we created quickly to something that can stand up in production and work?
Yeah, makes sense. So, I was talking to my son the other day. Was it yesterday, the day before? I can't remember. And he's a developer. And he looks at the news and reads the headlines and all of that. And he's like, Dad, what should I do? Do I need to learn AI? Do I need to start pair programming with an AI to make myself more relevant? Do I need to understand agentic, creating agents and things like that? What would you say a developer needs to know to use AI responsibly?
Responsibly, I would pair program with AIs, right? There are good things that they can do with you. I'd learn at least one of the tools. A lot of the techniques and the things you do are very similar from tool to tool.
Mm-hmm.
Learn how to do things like spec-driven development, how to write a specification that the agentic AI can then work with, and start getting a feel for how much you need to test the AI code, how much you need to review the AI code, how to make sure that the AI code does what you've asked it to do, right? One of the problems with generative AI is that it can be very convincing and completely wrong.
Yeah.
And so we have to be able to validate what we've done. And we have lots of validation techniques, right? So there's code review, there's tests at different levels, unit tests, integration tests, functional tests. So how do you make sure that you validate that the software works as you think it should, as it's required to work, and that it does what it's supposed to? And you can use the AI to help you write tests as well. And then just like when we'd write unit tests, and then someone would suggest, well, should we write tests for the tests?
Yeah.
You have to decide where to stop.
Yeah.
And where our other ability to verify the software, either by looking at the tests, reviewing the tests, is sufficient. And those are all things that human beings have to get a feel for, right? We have to do it to understand it.
Yeah. Do you know of teams that are using these techniques, these AI tools, these agents as, is sort of like, could you actually have a 3-person team working with each of them work with a couple of agents, a testing agent, a coding agent, to be as productive as a 6-person team? I'm just making that up. I don't know if that's possible or not, but I'm wondering if you do.
Yeah, so I have worked with some of my customers in the past that used coding agents and got a lot of value out of them. Whether it was a 3-person team doing as much work as a 6-person team, that's hard to say, right? But I look at the coding assistants as amplifiers, and I know I'm not the only one who's said this, but if you can do productive, valuable work, it can help you do more of that.
It still depends on the human, though. The human in the loop is the key.
Yeah. Well, and if we look at the Agile Manifesto, working with motivated individuals is the way that you produce software and get value out of it. So, unfortunately, there are people that I've worked with that have been little value or negative value. And if you were one of those people, an AI is going to amplify that too in the wrong direction and make it harder for you to build production software that's going to stand up and work.
That is a very good point. Yeah, it's going to amplify either your qualities or your faults in equal measure. Right. Interesting. I want to shift to a story that really kind of stuck with me in our preparatory conversation. The airline industry dealt with autopilot failure by putting pilots in simulators and walking them through scenarios most pilots will probably never face, right, in the real world. Do you think we need something similar for software teams? And if so, what would that look like?
Yeah, I do think we'll get to that point, right? Because the AI assistants are going to get better. The way that I learned how to program and I had a sense for, what's right and wrong and with code was because I wrote a lot of code, made a lot of mistakes, learned from most of those mistakes. And so in order for people to do that same thing where they can evaluate what the AI is generating, they'll have to have some way of gaining that same sense of what's right, what's wrong, what makes sense. And one way to do that is through exercises where they're seeing problems and fixing them, even if those are things that they might not see a lot in their day-to-day work because they're using AI to generate a lot of code. So they're not making the mistakes themselves. So we have to provide a way for them to experience the mistakes and learn from them.
Yeah, it makes sense. I suppose that model could scale for AI failure scenarios, right? So you could use that in the same way. Okay. You made an observation that I think is critical, and most people in the AI space are maybe completely missing. The way Agile adoptions failed is a near perfect preview of how AI adoptions are going to fail. So do you agree with that? And if so, can you walk us through that parallel? What did organizations get wrong with Agile, and how are maybe they setting themselves up to repeat it with AI?
Yeah. And I think in my experience with IT failure, it's often a similar pattern where you want the benefit of a change, but doing that change seems like a lot of work. And so can't we just do some of it and get the same benefit?
Yeah.
So if you look at AI, I mean, there are benefits to AI, but if you give everybody a license to run a code assistant, don't train them how to do it, don't ground them in the practices that are going to be beneficial, then there's going to be a lot of people who just do things, they spend a lot of time trial and error figuring it out rather than focused learning. And then they're going to develop patterns that don't work, and they're going to start having workarounds to the problems that you introduce by not grounding them in the practices they're supposed to do.
So you would advocate for smaller experiments in AI, using AI, implementing it, sort of those types of things, more iterative.
Active training as well. Yes, definitely. Yeah. Smaller experiments, get people used to it. Active training, helping them understand how are these tools valuable? What mistakes have other people made?
Sure.
So that I can learn from those.
When you say active training, can you describe what you mean by that?
I mean, it could either be going to a training class, or it could be something like a dojo metaphor, where we go in and we have a set of things that we intend to do to practice the skills under the guidance of someone who's already done that.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, that's really important, right? So you have a safe place to practice, make mistakes, learn from them, and then apply it in the real world. You co-authored a paper using large language models to automate behavior-driven development. For listeners who aren't familiar with what BDD is, first of all, what is it? And then why is automating it with AI actually a useful application of AI?
Okay. So behavior-driven development is the idea that we want to understand how the users would use a system, what paths they'd go through the system. And it's part of a test-driven philosophy where you're writing the tests before you're implementing the software. And that helps us understand, when we're done writing the software, by when we pass the tests. We create a regression suite out of the tests that we're creating so that we can constantly know, does the functionality that used to work still work, right? So one of the values of having test automation in a DevOps environment is that we're always running those tests and verifying the code, these applications still works as we thought it should. So one of the values of using AI to generate that is that you're, creating BDD is a series of starts with conversations with the team. In an Agile context, the team are people who are business savvy and understand how the software should be used. Testers, people who are going to validate that the requirements that we get from the business, the software actually lives up to, and then the developers, and having those conversations. And so using the AI to have those conversations again, is an accelerator, and it helps you get to, the different levels of planning, right? So you first plan the tests, then you plan, how would these work? And then you actually write the scripts that then do the test automation. So the goal is to use the AI to help you get through all those steps at an accelerated pace.
It seems like a good use case for AI, maybe more so than vibe coding. I don't know. I haven't tried vibe coding, so I can't say from experience, but it seems like a useful use case.
I think that putting structure into how you use AI, just like put structure into how you develop software, is one of the things that helps you get more value out of it.
Right, for sure.
Right. As I said earlier, if you're someone who wants to do a quick prototype to show what something might look like, pure vibe coding is valuable. It has value. If you want to build production software, putting more structure into the way you use AI to create code is valuable.
Yeah, that's a good way to frame it. So Tom, what's going on with you now? What's next for you?
I've spent the last 25 or so years mostly in the commercial world, figuring out how to build software better.
Yeah.
And so I've joined a company, Steampunk, we talked about earlier, where the mission there is to bring all that learning and help build better software for the government. And so that's what I'm spending my time doing now, is trying to apply all that learning to how do we get better software in the government.
Yeah, that's great. Is there anything that I have not asked you that you'd like to share? And I have some lightning round questions to close out our session.
I don't think so. It's been a great conversation.
Okay, awesome. All right, let's see. You've called stopping retrospectives at DevSecOps anti-pattern.
Mm-hmm.
What did you mean by that?
So a lot of organizations do that when they're stuck, right? So your retrospectives can become complaint sessions where nothing comes out of it, or there's no resolution to the issues that come out of it. And the next step after realizing that is to just stop having them. So that means that the team's no longer inspecting and adapting, no longer trying experiments to get better. And so that's what I meant by it.
Okay. Makes perfect sense. So if a team came to you tomorrow and said, hey, Tom, we want to start our DevSecOps journey today, but we can only do one thing, what would be that one thing that they should start with?
I think I'd have to ask them some questions about what problems do they have now that they want to address. So if the problem is a dev problem, that's a different answer than if it's a sec problem, which is a different answer if it's an ops problem.
Okay, so it starts with a question as to what problem to solve, and then they can do the one thing to solve that, and hopefully they come back to you for with questions about other things that they want to solve.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Tom, for coming on the show. I really appreciate your insights. I feel like I learned a lot, and I'm sure our listeners did as well. So appreciate your time.
Thank you. I enjoyed it. It was an excellent time.
All right. Thanks a lot. Thanks for watching all. Bye-bye.